Hello, Sam from Sound on Sound magazine here. I'm at the AES convention in New York, and with me now is legendary mix engineer Bob Clearmountain. Hi, Bob.
Hi, how are you, Sam?
I'm good. It's a pleasure to meet you as always. And this is a bit of a special show for you because you're releasing the first product that's with your name on it.
That's right, yeah. It's the Clearmountain's domain plugin. It's a plugin for Pro Tools and Logic and Ableton, everything else.
So explain a little bit the reason why you felt the need to develop this plugin.
All right, well, over the years, I've kind of developed sort of a workflow, a system of using delays and reverbs and harmonizers, and it's sort of like creating an environment where the mix actually kind of lives, which is where the name Clearmountain's domain comes from. And but it's rather complex, although in the analog world it's quite easy. You know, I have a big SSL desk. I got a couple of digital delays that feed the console. From there, I can feed it into a bunch of reverbs on aux sends, EQ it on the desk, and then that also feeds into a couple of harmonizers. Some of the sends I DS for vocal delays and things like that. And so my assistant, Sergio Ruelas, who mixes in the box, he's actually a very good musician, incredible guitar player, but he mixes in the box in Logic and Pro Tools. And one day he says to me, you know, I tried to duplicate this workflow that you use because I really like it, but it was really difficult to do, stringing a bunch of plugins together and trying to just getting them to relate to each other the way you have everything kind of woven together. And so we started thinking about it. We thought, well, gee, I wonder if we could actually make a plugin that did all that just within one plugin, so that people in the box could, instead of tearing their hair out trying to set something like that up, it would just all be available right away. And so we got to thinking about it. This is about 2 years ago. We started sketching it out and trying to figure out what it needed and what sort of buttons and knobs it would needed. And then Apogee started doing plugins. In fact, Apogee's plugins are second to none. I mean, they have some compressors and EQs that are just fantastic. They do Pultecs. They do the original, the only company that actually can use the name Pultec. And so we thought, okay, well, maybe with Apogee we could do this plugin. And we found a programmer, and there's a little small team, me and a couple of the other guys at Apogee that worked on it. And we worked on it for like a year, and so we've come up with this thing that pretty closely mimics what I do in the analog world. In fact, it's got some additions. It's got a distortion parameter in there that I always wanted to do, and I could never figure out a great way to do it in the analog world.
So this is, in a sense, a plugin that incorporates both a kind of complex routing system that would mimic what you would do on your SSL console.
That's correct.
And also mimics some of the effects processes that you would be linking using that routing system.
Right.
So what sort of effects are we talking about here?
Well, digital delays. I use pitch change, like normally used between 2 and 4 harmonizers. I mean, this plugin has two harmonizers that can either be used just to thicken up the delay sound, or else it can, like almost like a double track kind of thing. It kind of spreads it a little bit, or else you can use it. It can go up to a full octave in semitones, so you can get some really nutty sounds if you start regenning them and feeding back, things like that. And then there's reverbs. There's 3 basic impulse responses. One's the Apogee Studio, which is our room. It's a very warm, sort of very short ambience. There's the Mixis chambers, which are it duplicates the chambers that I've been using for years in my studio Mixis, and then the third slot, there's a whole list of other impulse responses that all the impulse responses are ones that we created ourselves from different places. There's a bathroom, there's a shower, there's a stairwell, there's a really nice chamber. Some friends of ours have a studio, and it's an impulse response, like a 4-second, beautiful, magnificent sounding chamber. And then we're going to add to that as it goes. We're going to do more of them, as many as we can, just to get different types of environments. I'm a big fan of real reverb. I came from a power station where the main chamber 1, was a stairwell that we had all wired up all the time with a couple of mics, a couple of big 604E mics. It's a 75-foot stairwell. And the other chamber was a little bathroom that I had found in the basement of the building that nobody was using. And I wired it up one day with an old 4311 speaker that was sitting in storage and a couple of AKG mics. And that's actually the main reverb on records like Start Me Up and Hungry Heart, a lot of other records that I mixed. And so we have something that the bathroom chamber that we have here is very similar to that.
It's interesting to hear you describe these domains as being sort of the sound of the record, is that you would set up one of these effects chains and it would be individual to an album or a track,
right,
and that would be what would give it a lot of its character.
I think so. A lot of, like, if you listen to something like the Avalon record by, this is going back a ways. A lot of your younger listeners might not know these records, but you might go back and listen to some of this stuff. Like Avalon is very expansive, very wide. In fact, I've gotten more comments on that album than anything in my career. And apparently there were a lot of babies conceived to that particular record, from what I understand. But it's very wide, very deep sounds, and a lot of that was that big stairway. But a lot of delays. I used a lot of delays that were kind of in the background. They're all in time with the music, so a lot of times you're not even aware of them when you're listening to the record. It's just this big expansive sound. So this kind of emulates that.
So it's almost like a subliminal thing that you don't necessarily notice these delays,
right?
But they're giving the record an atmosphere or a kind of bedrock of an individual character that
That's
you're
right.
placing the things within.
That's exactly right. But then you can get some really radical, jump out of your seat effects as well, which is fun. In fact, we have 4. I just created 4 Halloween plugins, which are just fun.
And would you typically be sending to these effects from a lot of sources within a mix, or just from the lead source?
No, from a lot of sources. Like, I'll usually use it off an aux send, and sometimes I'll put a guitar. Like, I'll put a guitar that's over on the left speaker, and I'll send it into the delay on the right, and then that'll bounce back and forth between the left and the right, and that'll go into a reverb and harmonizers, and it will create this big, wide sound. Or sometimes on a live track, like I do mix a lot of Rolling Stones live videos and Springsteen. I've just done Toto and a bunch of other people, Doobie Brothers. But just to liven up a live track, I'll put like a short left and right delay, and then kind of distort it a bit, and so it simulates the sound of an overdriven PA bouncing off the walls of a theater or an arena.
Interesting. And coming with this plugin, you've actually got quite a lot of presets that mimic very specific sounds from records that you're known for. Maybe you could talk us through a couple of those.
Okay, yeah. It's like the Let's Dance guitar delay was a big thing. I mean, when that happened, when we mixed it originally, on the David Bowie record, Let's Dance, Nile Rodgers said, "Oh, could you put some kind of a slap or something on my guitar part? Because what I'm playing is kind of boring." And then it was actually a mistake. I had the return way too loud. It was a tape delay. It was just a tape slap, and it wasn't timed properly or anything. And I thought it was a mistake. And David and Niall immediately stood up and goes, no, leave it right there. Don't touch it. Don't correct it. And so it kind of gives you a very similar sort of thing. There's things like the Let's Dance Reverb, which is just this little bathroom in the basement, and we have something very similar in that. There's like one of our examples was the sax solo in Jungle Land, which is live from Central Park from Bruce Springsteen, and it's just this very wide, expansive, long delay that sounds like Clarence's sax was bouncing off of the buildings surrounding Hyde Park. Things like that, and there's a whole bunch of other things. It's like it's sort of a place to start from, and then I would encourage people to start from one of the presets, but then make it your own. Go under the hood. Every single parameter exists in the plugin that I use to make the presets. So sky's the limit. It's really up to your imagination.
Well, going back to what you were saying about Let's Dance, I mean, nowadays I guess you're best known as a mix engineer, but of course you also tracked a load of classic albums.
Yeah.
And would you use these effects to inspire the artists while they were recording, to give them some of these kind of spacey effects and put them in the vibe of the album when they were actually tracking?
It's a good idea. No, no. Usually it's just a bit of verb, because you're thinking more about recording, and so I'm like, I have trouble thinking about two things at once. And so to actually set up some fancy effect, sometimes I would have just a repeat on a vocal, like doing Bryan Adams. He always liked to hear just a little, an in-time delay of some sort, a quarter note or a triplet or something like that. So sometimes I would give that to him in his headphones, but usually not. It's usually something that happens just in the mix, but that's a good idea, and I think people should try doing that.
Yeah, well, I guess now we can just dial it up straight away.
Well, it's much easier. Yeah. In the old days, you'd have to go through a whole thing. Oh, let me set that up. Let me get a tape delay. Let me figure out the right timing. And here, it's just dial it in.
So now that we have this, are you going to be selling your SSL?
Nah, I don't think so. Yeah. Although I'm always looking for something better. I tried a few ideas, but nothing's kind of come close. I'm just starting to learn how to mix in the box. After all these years, I thought, I should learn. I should know how to do that. I don't have to do it because I own a great 25-year-old SSL that's still working.
Wow. Well, so the plugin is available now, I understand?
It's available. It's been available for a week as of now, and it's $349, and I hope everybody likes it. Might sound like maybe a little bit too much, but if you think about what's in there, there's a lot. There's really a lot. This takes the place of a whole bunch of other plugins, really.
For sure. Well, I'm going to be installing it first thing when I get back to the UK, and I can't wait to get my hands on it. Thanks so much for your time, Bob.
Yeah, I can't wait to hear what you think.
Wonderful. Great to see you.
Great to see you too. Thank you.
Thank you.